RWBY Volume 5, Episode 8, Alone Together. So this episode, I would say, kind of fits fairly well with the last one. It was definitely more of a heartfelt episode compared to some of the, crazier action elements of the series. But I like this one a bit more. Even though the last one, I really enjoyed, and I know a lot of people didn't like it because it was like them kind of recapping stuff. This episode kind of dealt with the continuation of those emotions where it's like, man, like Yang saying, I can't believe we're in Mistral, and, most of us are together, and then they reference Blake not being there, and Yang is super pissed about that, and I thought that was very interesting, because I didn't realize that she would really be that upset about it, that, Yang decided, or Blake decided to take off. So that was a very interesting moment, and Weiss ends up being the one to talk to her, which, once again, great progression for Weiss. I just love that. They even make a joke about, nice Weiss strikes again. So, great progression where it wasn't RWBY that went to talk to Yang, it was actually Weiss that went there first. So, I did love that for sure. And they share their stories where Yang talks about, my mom left, RWBY's mom left. Which, the way she said it, I thought that was interesting, because, of course, RWBY's mom is dead, but did she leave before she died? Like, just the fact that she said she left and she didn't say that she died seemed interesting to me. Like, that sometimes people do say that instead of actually saying died just because it hurts. But I was like, I don't know. I'm curious. It's RWBY, so every little thing always means something. So I was like, She just didn't say that, RWBY's mom died. She said RWBY's mom left. So, I don't know. But she mentions how she has always kind of had this odd form of loneliness where it's like, her dad was busy with school, and then of course RWBY was too young; she couldn't even talk. So it's like I was the one that had to pick up the pieces, and I was just alone. And then we have someone who, one of our best friends, and she took off when things were at their worst. She left, and they definitely had a shipping moment there, without a doubt. Of course, a Bumblebee moment there, which I personally don't mind. I think that would be cool, but who knows? Who knows how that'll play out? But I thought it was really cool. I thought that was a great moment. And then, of course, Weiss talks about, her issues, her form of loneliness, which I think we always knew. And I think I made this reference in the last volume when she was dealing with, escaping, and how they barely referenced her mom. But the one time they did, it was her brother saying, like, oh, she's in the garden drinking or something. And I was like, I think she's an alcoholic. And, of course, we find out that it's because her dad, the douchebag, was a super douchebag. And when she was, I believe she said it was during her 10th birthday, he officially, kind of said, the only reason I'm here is because of the name, the family name. And I was like, wow, I hate him even more, but, I already hate him to begin with, so I guess it doesn't change much. But after that, she talks about how things changed. It was like, the dinners would be different. The recitals they'd be on different balconies, and then eventually there were no dinners, there were no recitals, and everything was just her. It was a glass of wine out here and there, and then it became a bottle of wine here and there. And I was like, yeah, that will kind of tear you down and destroy you, and that's the loneliness that she started to feel, where she grew up, where it was at least somewhat normal, and then everything fell apart because her dad is a douchebag, and so that kind of splintered their entire family, where Winter took off to go to the military, and then Weiss was kind of left on her own, and then she got a younger brother who, kind of, in a sense, is taking more in the footsteps of their father, which is unfortunate, but that's the loneliness that she felt, even with her family being there. They're so splintered that she's alone in that giant house, outside of her butler. I wish I could remember his name. But I thought that was cool, them going through the stories of, their forms of loneliness, and how they're just close. Like, when Blake needs them, they will, Weiss will be there, and she says, like, even though we're not as close, I'll be there for you too. Like, you guys are like my family. You're more than, more family to me than my actual family. So, well, she doesn't say that. She specifically says more than her father and her brother, because her mom and her sister are awesome, so that makes sense. But it's like, you guys are family to me, so I'll always be there. And I was like, this is really cool. I like this portion, and like I said, with it being Weiss that went to speak with Yang, I thought it was cool. It's progression for both of their characters. And then, of course, that's when RWBY comes in, and it's like, alright, well, they, talk about Blake so much, eventually they do have to cut to Blake. So that is who we get for the second half of this episode. It's Blake, and it's her storyline, and her dealing with Ilya, and the actual attack on her family, which was great. I'm super excited. Once again, I'm excited for the next episode. So it kind of, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, going into this, and I was like, oh, it's a lot of talking and stuff. And I was like, I don't, they're not going to show us the fight from the camp, which I think everyone was waiting for this week. Which also super random for anyone who just finding my reviews for this. I just got I got a month. I should have 2 months for Verve, so I'll actually be up to date on my reviews. They won't be a week behind anymore, so I'm excited for that. I get to watch them all the time. And also, I'm going to put a link in the description if you guys want to try to get the free month thing that I got. It's for a limited time, so it should still be up, but free month for Verve, so I'll definitely put that link in the description if you want to check it out. But yeah, going into Blake's storyline for this episode, it was really cool. It started off fairly simple. She saw the note and it was like, okay, well, Ilya wants me to meet. She ends up taking Sun, which we don't find out. But I loved it. And, that whole conversation that they had, we find out that Ilya was actually in love with Blake, which I thought was actually really cool because I just assumed they were like best friends because that's how it always seemed, is that they were, and which I'm sure they were best friends. But excuse me, a part of that is one of the two wanted it to be more, and I really loved that reveal. I thought it was actually really well done where she says you were too busy. At first it starts off where it was just like, this has always been me, but you were too busy kind of falling for Adam that you never noticed it. And I was like, okay, that doesn't lead to any sort of relationship or any sort of feelings. That was just, you never really paid attention to who I was when we were friends back in the day. And then it went beyond that where it was like, I don't want this, and I kind of wish that you would have seen me the way, or I wish you would looked at me the way you used to look at Adam. And it was like, man, she loved her, like she was in love with her, and now she's in this insanely odd position where I don't know. I have to wonder if Adam is in the same position too. Like, we don't really know exactly how he feels or how he ever actually felt about Blake, but it's very interesting to see because they're already touched on, like 2 episodes ago, him kind of being crazy and stuff like that, or starting to lose it. So I don't know if Adam and Ilya are like in the same position or how that's gonna end up playing out when that all comes down to it, as far as their feelings towards Blake. But definitely a great moment, and Ilya ends up capturing Blake. We have like her little Spider Woman take her down, and the dude with the bat wings, he comes down and just like basically just drop kicks her. And that's pretty much how that went. I thought it was gonna be like a full on fight, but he just drop kicked her, and then it was just like boom, spider web, you're captured. And I was like, oh, that was pretty fast. But before Blake can actually be taken to Adam, who we find out is in Mistral. I don't know if they said that before, but this is the first time I noticed where they're like, we're going to send you to Adam and Mistral. And I was like, oh, that's where Sienna was. That's like the main faction of the White Fang is actually in Mistral. And I know they referenced Mistral before, like even, I'm pretty sure it was like during that big rally, and it was just like an attack. I didn't know that that's exactly where they were, so maybe I just didn't pick up on it. But when they said that, I was like, oh, Adam's already there, so he could potentially run into RWBY, Weiss, and Yang, and the rest of I guess Team Ranger. I don't know how to do it now because it's weird. It's like, well, now it's most of Team RWBY, but it's like, what do we call Team Ranger? But run into all of them before Blake even gets there, and I was like, oh, that's interesting because that might end up being how that plays out. But during that whole segment before Blake is able to be taken out, Sun drops in. Cool little action sequence there. It was very quick. I wish we got to see a little bit more. But simple little sequence, and it's like, all right, they're going to attack my family. We need to go save them. And they try to make the call. It's like, Blake calls her mom, and it's too late because there's already gunfire and people being shot at, people being killed. And it comes down to her mom and her dad. And I don't know what we should expect from this next episode, but man, I am excited. If they do what I hope they do, it's going to basically just be an absolutely chaotic episode next week. And I hope that that's how it plays out, because the way they ended not only this episode, but last week's episode, it's basically leading up to one giant episode where it's like, this story is the emotional element with Blake, but there's also all the chaos of her father fighting and her mother fighting. I can't wait to see her mom fight because I want to see what power she has. It's kind of revealed that her dad is like basically a wolf, or some sort of animal that is not exactly, well, I guess you could say he's a cat. I mean, he's got claws, so he could still technically be a cat-based faunus, but considering he had the claws, I thought of like the old Wolverine dude that they had at the beginning of Volume 2 that went up against Mercury and Emerald, because he had the claws come out. So that was pretty awesome. I can't wait to see him fight against the brothers. I don't know how that's going to play out, because they're so mysterious. Who knows what they can freaking do. But that'll be like one half of the episode where it's chaotic, but it's story-driven, and then the other chaotic side is going to be basically all these crappy people fight each other. So we have Mercury, Emerald, Cinder, Watts, Raven, and I always forget which maiden it is, and I can't think of her, Vernal, hopefully that's her, that's the character I'm thinking of, that's her actual name. But all of them in a fight at the camp, and a bunch of people I assume are going to probably get killed because of that situation. So I hope that's how the next episode actually plays out, because both those storylines, even if it's just like a crazy action episode, both storylines have a lot of emotional weight to them. We have no clue what will happen at this camp. Like, depending on who lives and who dies, I mean, obviously there's two specific characters with Cinder and Vernal. If either of them get killed by anyone, that transfers the power of a maiden. So that's a huge deal. And then of course you have Raven in general, and what, her camp being attacked by the main villains. Is that going to send her to, the rest of the team? Like, is that going to send her back to Crow, where she's like, look, they, maybe they'll even actually get the maiden. Maybe they won't kill her, but they'll kidnap her, and then Raven is going to be like, all right, I have to go get my brother because we're the only ones that can handle this. That could actually happen, but we don't know. So there's so many options as to how things can play out in this next episode, and I'm hoping that they actually do focus on all action, or, at least mostly action, because that's kind of what we deserve. With the way, you do like an epic cliffhanger 2 weeks in a row, you have to pick up both those cliffhangers in that third portion. It's almost like a 3-part thing, where it's like, the first part was like the recap of characters kind of getting back together, and then the end was the cliffhanger, and then this week was them kind of continuing on with that recap. Not necessarily the recap, but where do we go now that we've been together, and what do we do with the one person that's missing? And then of course we go to Blake and the issue she's dealing with the revolt from the White Fang officially. And so you end with that epic cliffhanger. And so next week we have to get the resolution to both these crazy cliffhangers. And I think that's what we're going to get. And I really hope we do. Also, this episode, I mentioned for last week, it was only 12 minutes. This one was 15 minutes, so it was closer to the normal length of an episode. But I'm hoping we get a special long episode. Even if we don't, it should be fine, because I hope that they'll focus like really on the action and stuff like that. So can't wait for next week. I think it should be pretty nuts. I hope nobody dies. Of course, I'm freaked out about that all the time now, because it's like, once you kill one person, I don't know, like, people can legitimately die. Technically, 2 people did die, or actually, no, like 3 people died. I mean, you have Penny, Pyrrha, and technically the old version of Ozpin did die. So, there's a lot of, people can die now, so it's just like, I don't know what's going to happen, but very excited for next week's episode. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it, and I would love to know your theories on how these crazy fights are going to play out. Like, what's going to happen at the camp? What is going to happen at Blake's home? Will she get there too late? Will one of her parents die? Both of her parents die? Neither of her parents die? I don't know. Because it's only 2 characters, it does make me worry that one of her parents will actually get killed off. I don't know if it'll actually be her dad, but considering he's the one jumping into the fight, that could be how it plays out, where he basically stalls him enough to where his wife doesn't have to deal with, like, the actual tough guys. Like, she could probably deal with, like, the cannon fodder, we'll say, like the stormtrooper characters. So she could, take all of them out, but he'll be fighting he'll be fighting the brothers, and they'll be like 2 main villain characters. And it's like, you never know. And then even with his power, that's still 2 against 1. Plus they have like their swords, like which is actually a lot like Ilya's weapons. They're almost exactly the same. They just look, different. So I thought that was interesting that their weapons were just like hers. But looking forward to next week's episode, no matter what. And like I said, I want to know your theories for how all the battles are going to play out. The camp battle, the house battle. How's that going to work? Who's going to live? Who's going to die? And of course, I just want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.